rumors are fast-moving.
Unlike other big rallies,
Bit earlier at about 7 a.m., a group from the Coast Guard.
Welcome to #PHVote 2013 Rappler.
Today on Rappler, Senate Minority Leader Juan Ponce Enrile fires back at Senator Miriam Santiago, questioning her sanity, her motives, and her competence in law. Senator J.V. Ejercito tells Budget Secretary Abad to resign if the Supreme Court finds the president's spending program illegal. And boxing promoter Bob Arum says Pacquiao shouldn't pay taxes twice. Hello, I'm Maria Ressa. Welcome to Rappler, your social news network. From the ravages of nature to the frailties of leaders responding to victims, the news now shifts to a catfight between national officials. Senator Juan Ponce Enrile fires back at Senator Miriam Santiago in a privileged speech, calling her cuckoo and inane. Enrile says Santiago is, quote, the grandmama of all falsehood fabricators and a, quote, spiteful and bitterly hostile mind. Enrile also tries to demolish the lady senator's law credentials, saying she, quote, nearly flunked her bar examination. Ay Makaraig reports.
Any objection?
He has been silent for months, all throughout newspaper exposés, a plunder complaint, and an ombudsman investigation. But it took one woman to get him talking, Miriam Defensor Santiago. Senate Minority Leader Juan Ponce Enrile fires back at his fiercest rival for allegations she made during the Senate probe into the pork barrel scam.
Sinabi ng senadora sa Blue Ribbon hearing na ako daw ay may asim pa. May asim pa. Ginong Pangulo, nagpapasalamat ako sa kanya. Kanyang sinabi na ako ay may asim pa. Ngunit, Ginong Pangulo, ikinalulungkot kong sabihin at masakit mang banggitin. Hindi po ako naaasiman sa kanya.
Enrile denies plotting to assassinate alleged mastermind Janet Napoles to prevent her from pointing to him as the real brains behind the scandal. The defense minister during the martial law regime says he is not murderous.
Mr. President, I never murdered anyone during all my almost 90 years on this planet. But for someone to say with impunity that I killed someone deliberately, I do not know if there are any who did in the Senate, or that I'm planning anyone's murder is the grandmama of all falsehood fabricators.
Enrile even responds to Santiago's statement that a bodyguard with a long firearm accompanies him to the restroom.
I never realized until that Blue Ribbon hearing that we have a peeping Tom in the Senate.
While he devotes his speech to attacks against Santiago, Enrile barely addresses her claim that he orchestrated the plunder of taxpayers' money.
Only an inane and bitterly hostile mind could fabricate such a canard. Suffice it to say that there will be a time and a more auspicious appropriate forum to deal in detail with the alleged PDAP scam.
Instead, Enrile traces the root of Santiago's anger. He says Santiago is getting back at him for opposing her confirmation as Agrarian Reform Secretary and refusing to give her committees with big budgets. He says for all her pride, Santiago is not the legal expert she presents herself to be.
Well, I'm sorry to say, Mr. President, that this former judge does not seem to understand the basic meaning of due process. Now I know why she nearly flunked her bar examination. A parrot, Mr. President, can memorize legal principles, but it cannot apply them.
Santiago is on sick leave but vows to retaliate in her own privileged speech on December 4th. Enrile versus Santiago. They are two of the most prominent legal luminaries in the country whose careers and rivalry endure decades and controversies. As they fight it out over the pork barrel scam, observers hope the privileged speeches won't just be personal and entertaining, but help the public get to the truth of this massive corruption scandal. Ay Makaraig, Rappler.
Senator J.B. Ejercito says Budget Secretary Florencio Abad should resign if the Supreme Court strikes down the administration's controversial spending program. Ejercito says Abad must, quote, take the bullet if the High Court declares a disbursement acceleration program or DAP unconstitutional. He says, quote, if this is proven to be illegal, President Aquino will be affected. He should be shielded. Secretary Abad should make the supreme sacrifice. Ejercito says Abad's resignation is a better option than the filing of an impeachment complaint against Aquino. Malacanang admits the president's trust and satisfaction ratings reached a low of 42% from a high of 77% since the pork controversy broke out. The Supreme Court is now hearing petitions against the DAP. Ejercito believes the court will declare the program illegal, saying, people are now against the pork barrel, so all forms of pork barrel must be removed, and DAP, whatever angle you use to view it, is really pork barrel. In September, Abad defended DAP, saying it aimed to address underspending at a time of slow economic growth. Abad reacts to speculation surrounding the program, saying, I cannot react to pure speculation. He adds, media should not be preoccupied with it. Manny Pacquiao's promoter, Bob Arum, says certified U.S. tax paperwork for Pacquiao will be received by Philippine authorities, in his words, very soon. On Tuesday, the Court of Tax Appeals issued a freeze order on Pacquiao's assets and bank accounts involved in a 2.2 billion peso tax evasion case. Pacquiao says Philippine Tax Bureau officials rejected the documentation he provided to show payments were made to the U.S. Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS. Arum says allegations of unpaid taxes from U.S. boxing matches in 2008 and 2009 are false. The promoter explains, Filipino authorities confirmed that Manny is not required to pay double taxes. If Manny paid U.S. taxes for fights and endorsements that occurred on U.S. soil, he is not required to pay double taxes in the Philippines. Arum says Philippine officials want certified paperwork of the transactions with the IRS rather than top ranks EFT deposit acknowledgments. Arum says getting documents from the IRS takes time, but the request was made. He adds, the necessary documents will be furnished to the BIR very soon. Pacquiao's bank accounts remain frozen, stopping him from making a pledge to support victims of Super Typhoon Yolanda, known internationally as Haiyan. It keeps rising. The death toll from Super Typhoon Haiyan reaches 5,500 Wednesday. The toll rises with the addition of 260 deaths in eastern Visayas. Casualties from Tacloban City make up the bulk of the count. At least 25,615 were injured and 1,757 remain missing. Government officials say some of the missing people may be among the unidentified bodies. The government is finalizing, in its words, long-range rehabilitation plans for the devastated areas. It will take 2 years to 5 years to implement. Malacanang holds a full cabinet meeting Wednesday to discuss the plan. The military confirms at least 25 civilians posing as typhoon survivors and volunteers were caught looting relief goods at the Villamor Air Base in Pasay City. Air Force spokesperson Colonel Miguel Ernesto Ocol says fellow volunteers reported the theft. He adds the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, filed charges against the suspects and turned them over to the Pasay City Police. Operating in groups, the fake evacuees were caught by Air Force security forces bringing the relief packs to their vehicles. One of the vehicles used in the theft was a red plate car, which means it's a government vehicle. Relief operations at the military air base started November 16. Project NOAA Executive Director Dr. Mahar Lagmay says equating a storm surge to a tsunami or saying it is tsunami-like is inaccurate, dangerous, and irresponsible. Lagmay was responding to questions on how to better communicate the danger of storm surges to the public. Before the calamity, few people understood the term storm surge, but everyone knew what a tsunami was. A storm surge is water pushed inland by very strong winds, usually during very strong typhoons. A tsunami happens when water is displaced by earthquakes. Lagmay says people should react and prepare for tsunamis and storm surges in different ways. He says in a tsunami scenario, people only have up to 10 to 15 minutes to run to higher ground. He says everyone will run, there will be panic, and it can cause a stampede. In the case of a storm surge, there's more time to prepare. Storm surge warnings for Yolanda came 2 days before the typhoon hit land. He says a planned evacuation can be done without panic. The night before Yolanda hit, President Benigno Aquino mentioned the threat of storm surges during his televised address to the nation. At present, there is no direct translation for storm surge. Daluyong or daloyong, an ancient Tagalog word for waves, is one suggestion. Another term is hombak or humbak. Historian Pepe Alas writes in his blog, a 17th century Spanish Tagalog dictionary uses hombak to describe a phenomenon very similar to a storm surge. Air pollution levels in a barangay in Leyte reaches critical levels after the super typhoon caused an oil spill in Estancia town. Inspecting the site, Health Secretary Enrique Ona says the oil spill reached 16.9 parts per million. He recommends urgent relocation for the 4,444 individuals or 1,174 families living in Barangay Botongon. Power barge 103 of the National Power Corporation slammed into the shoreline during the typhoon, killing 2 residents. Estancia Mayor Rene Cordero said the oil spill may have already reached the neighboring town of Batad, about 10 kilometers away from Estancia. Fishing, the main livelihood of residents, are on hold because of the oil slick. The DOH brought in oil spill toxicologist Dr. Bessie Antonio, who also recommends the relocation of residents. Antonio says health problems from the oil spill may include cough and fever. For the long term, it could be aplastic anemia, lung cancer, and leukemia. 2 persons died after the power barge landed on their homes. Well, let's now look at Rappler's Wrap for today, a list of the 10 most important events around the world you shouldn't miss. At number 3, Pope Francis calls for reform of papal powers, saying it's time for a, quote, conversion of the papacy. In a document released by the Vatican Tuesday, the Catholic leader says he wants advice on how his role should change, using an informal style for his first apostolic exhortation, in which he outlines his vision for the future of the Roman Catholic Church. The Argentine Pope adds, excessive centralization, rather than proving helpful, complicates the Church's life. At number 7, Thai opposition protesters occupy more ministries in Bangkok on Tuesday in a bid to topple the government. Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra warns against, quote, mob rule as she faced a no-confidence motion in Parliament. Demonstrators surround the Interior, Agriculture, Transport, Sports, and Tourism ministries, ordering officials inside to leave. The unrest causes international concern and raises fears of street violence. And at number 10, top international musicians come together to help victims of the super typhoon in Songs for the Philippines, a 39-track compilation available for download on iTunes. The anthology features the biggest names in the music industry like Lady Gaga, Beyonce, Adele, and Madonna, along with famous bands U2, Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Kings of Leon, among others. For the full top 10, visit Rappler.com's The Wrap. Despite a narrowing gap between men and women in the Philippines, double standards and gender bias dominate attitudes towards women, even in progressive Metro Manila. Bea Cupin reports.
She's too ambitious, like it's a bad thing.
6 driven, passionate, empowered women take off from a survey on urban views on women. Metro Manilans are perceived to be more liberated, but a survey says stereotypes persist. The survey says Metro Manilans believe women who work tend to be pushy, and women need to downplay their personality to be accepted. But is pushy a bad thing?
Both ways. Sometimes it's positive, negative, but sometimes I do feel the sense that they do take it negatively, the guys, when you have so much in mind and you do share it. And pushy becomes aggressiveness, and aggression means negativity.
The unemployment rate in the Philippines rose in July this year, despite the country's strong economic growth and investment grade status. The survey says when jobs are scarce, Filipinos believe men deserve employment more than women. But one panelist argues there's a shift in the workplace.
Whether you're male or female, your achievement and Your achievement is really just limited by, could only be limited by, your where you really want to take your career. So, and it has nothing to do. A big part of it, I think, is it's the societal shift of perception that men and women are just equal. So education obviously matters, but I think in today's society, it's really about it's really about competence.
Survey respondents don't reflect that view, especially when it comes to education. Most believe that it's more important for men to get a college degree. Chinese International School of Manila founder Felicia Atienza says the bias is rooted on culture.
Because we are a matriarchal society, and being women, we are always giving, we're always sacrificing, we're the ones caring, we're the ones nurturing, and when push comes to shove, we'll say, okay, we'll let the man have it.
Education, says one panelist, empowers.
As more women are more educated, they learn that they have rights towards their bodies, especially with reproductive health.
While the scale has tipped, less than half of Metro Manila residents say women should sacrifice their careers for family. Artist Nikki Luna reminds the audience.
Not everyone has a choice. Everyone just has to survive and thrive. Some women have to be in that position, not because they have a choice, especially the marginalized, because they've been trapped by religion, especially here in our country.
Yes.
It's very, very patriarchal.
It's still a man's world out there, but women continue to push the glass ceiling. Bea Cupin, Rappler, Manila.
Every story on Rappler has a mood meter which gives you 8 emotions to choose from. Click how you feel and your vote comes down to the mood navigator in the middle of the front page that crowdsources the mood of the day. It also gives you the top 10 stories that have affected our viewers and our readers the most in the last 24 hours. If you take a look, these stories have gotten the most number of votes on their mood meter. Emotionally, you can see the mood of the day right off. Let's look at the 2 stories. This just came in a short while ago. Enrile, Miriam, cuckoo, inane, obsessive, hater. 58% angry, 18% annoyed. And the story that's gotten the most number of votes, Pacquiao and his taxes and the BIR. Pacquiao, it's earned money, not DAP or PDAF. 78% angry. Again, you can see the mood of the day. Today, most people are angry. Well, that is Rappler's Newscast for today, Wednesday, November 27, 2013. Visit Rappler.com and watch our newscast Monday to Friday. Tell us how you feel on our mood meter and help us crowdsource the mood of the day. I'm Maria Ressa. As we say at Rappler, tomorrow begins today.